Good morning and welcome to this webinar from Unifaun.
Morning.
With you today, it's myself, Johan Hellman, and by my side I have Per Larsson, also known as Pelle.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, I just want to quickly introduce ourselves before we dive into today's topic, which is Carrier Select. My role here at Unifaun is as a product manager, responsible for our TMS product. So I'm trying to make sure that we develop the product in the right direction and that it really works for our customers. My background is in logistics. I've been working for a producing company for many years, working with Unifaun's products, among other things. So hopefully I have some experience from the challenges that people working in logistics might have. And Pelle is working as a product owner, responsible for the daily backlog of couple of our development teams, answering their questions, being the voice of the customer in the development room, I would say.
Yeah. And I come from, if Johan comes from the logistics part, you could say that I come from more of a implementation and technical background. I started out as an implementation specialist, and then I moved on to development, and now I've been working in different roles within the product organization for 5 years.
Great. So before we become too specific around Carrier Select, and we will, just to be clear, we will show you a demo. Pelle will show you a demo, so you can really see what it looks like. But first of all, I will try to frame it a bit. And if you have any questions now, while we go forward, please use the question feature in the webinar software that we're using. So on your right-hand side, there should be a menu where you can type questions, and we will look at those questions at the end, and we will try to answer them the best we can. You can of course also always contact us at sales@unifaun.com if you would have anything you would like to know after the meeting. But okay, I mentioned that I was responsible for our TMS. What's that? TMS is a transport management system. This slide, we have shown it before in other webinars. I will not go through it in details now, but basically it's a couple of different ways of looking at TMS systems as defined by Gartner. We are talking here about a shipper TMS, so a transport management system designed to support shippers. There are also on the market TMS systems that are targeting carriers, which are quite different systems, and that's not what we're talking about here. But as you can see, there's a number of activities that a TMS system might cover and support from sourcing via planning to execution, which is the actual booking and printing, visibility, so basically seeing what's happening as it happens and also after it happened, the audit step, which is to understand the cost and to support the payment of freight and freight cost follow-up, and analytics, which is really working with the data that the preceding steps have generated to understand the business and find improvement. And I think the main point we want to make with this slide here is that according to Gartner, and I would say also according to our own experience, when people choose to invest in a TMS, they often do it based on a business case driven by a transport cost reduction. There are other benefits for sure also, like operational efficiencies, saving time and so on. But the one thing that is both relatively large and also relatively easy to quantify is the transport cost. So people will try to focus on the transport cost reduction that they can achieve, and then other benefits like lower inventory from reduced uncertainty. It's a bit more fluffy and treated as a nice additional benefit, but maybe not quantified in the business case.
Yeah, and you can also, most companies look at transports, it's not the core business, so they look at transport as a pure cost. So it's kind of natural that all companies that we work with, they have they put a lot of effort into the sourcing part. They want to buy cheap logistics. And the next part is also logical. It's that you want to follow up that you actually pay the right amount of money. So sourcing and audit is usually what's most interesting for when we talk to our customers. But we believe, and we hope that we'll convince you today, that actually, if you buy transport, but you always choose the incorrect transport service, so you buy it too expensive, then it doesn't matter if you buy cheap and you follow up that you paid what you according to your agreements, because in your operation you're always choosing too expensive transports. So that's what we're going to try to show you, how to be able to, during the execution, always choose the most cost efficient transport service.
And in order to understand this, we usually turn to this model. So trying to, when we talk to our customers, understand what their transport sourcing strategy is, because depending on the answer to this question, the system support you need will be different, and the fit with our solution will also vary. On the far left sort of side of this axis, we can see minimal commitment. So what it means is that you commit as little as possible to your carrier, your supplier. You go to the spot market, and for each individual shipment, you find the best available price without committing anything and without having any commitment back. So it's really a spot activity. And then on the other extreme, you have your own fleet. So you buy your own truck and you hire your own driver, which of course then gives you a maximal commitment. You know you have the truck, you know you have the driver, so you will never have to worry about not having a truck. But on the other hand, you will also always have the cost and the full responsibility of utilizing the truck and keeping the driver occupied, and by the way, happy and healthy and functional, is with you. So both these extremes have, I would say, quite strong drawbacks, and that's probably also the reason why they may be not so often used in practice. I mean, on the left-hand side, the spot market approach, it's obvious like it's really hard to build a good relationship with your supplier base. It's hard to work with quality, with emission reduction, with social responsibility. It's hard to secure the good working environment for the drivers and so on, because you will change your carriers all the time. And the carriers will not be committed to working with you because you don't commit anything back. You will only go for price in the end, and they will know this. And on the other hand, I mean, if you have your own fleet, obviously you will basically have to run your own carrier business, which is probably not what your company is sort of excelling in or being better than the competition at. So I mean, I'm guessing that your core competence is not to be a carrier, but something else. So taking on that responsibility, taking on the cost, usually is not in line with the strategy of a shipping company. So what's then in the middle? Well, there is a range of different sourcing approaches, going from open tariffs, basically meaning that you have a tariff agreement or tariff from a number of suppliers, carriers, but you have not agreed to actually using it. But if you do use it, that's the price. You can work with a dual source where you have a couple, one, two, or so suppliers dedicated for each relationship, but you can, for each shipment, you can choose between them. You can work with dedicated lanes, which I think is very normal or very common, that for each relationship in your supply chain, you have a preferred supplier. You have committed to using a certain supplier for a certain period of time for all your shipments, let's say from Sweden to Germany. All these cases, you are still dealing with A to B shipments, so you're procuring transport from one point to a destination point at a specific time. So you use what we normally call a consignment, a single consignment. Sometimes shippers would want to take on a bit larger planning responsibility and actually combining loads into something that we can call multi-stop shipments. So instead of just ordering shipment A to B, you would order something that's A, B, C, D. And then the assumption is that by combining your own loads, you can actually fill up the truck better and you can achieve a lower total cost. But on the other hand, you have to take on planning responsibility yourself. And if you push that even further, you move into chartered fleet, meaning that you actually purchase the whole truck for a period of time. Could be a day, could be a week, could be a year. And then you're fully responsible of utilizing the truck. But your supplier is still responsible for operating the truck and having a driver and so on. And if you would go for the left extreme, the system you need is some sort of freight exchange, a system or platform that can give you as many quotes as possible with as low effort as possible for your needs. And if you're on the right-hand side, you would use something we can call a carrier TMS, a system that helps you produce transport services, keeping track of fuel consumption, truck utilization, route planning, driver hours, and so on. If you were a little bit to the left, taking on, but still taking on a lot of planning responsibility, you will need a system that can provide you with advanced planning capabilities, optimizing many loads, planning them together in a route, planning the loading of a truck, and so on. Tasks that normally would be done by the forwarder, the carrier, if you procure your transports as A to B consignments, but in this scenario, it's done by you. The Unifaun TMS system is focusing on shippers that want to work with A to B shipments in some sort of environment where you have a commitment to your suppliers or your carriers. So you have some sort of tariff structure in place, and you want to make sure that you utilize the right carriers according to the tariffs you have and the agreements you have made. And that's really where Carrier Select comes in. Given that Unifaun TMS also have connectivity built in, we have customers utilizing our connectivity also after doing a planning in a more planning-focused system. So this is just to provide you some background. If we then talk about Carrier Select, so it's a system for selecting the right carrier for specific shipment across your supply chain. I mean, the picture you see here in the background now is just showing an example of what a supply chain can look like. You would normally have a supplier base shipping to production units. You're probably shipping internally to distribution centers and then out to your customers, which may also have return flows. And one of the first things that you can do using Carrier Select is to save time in operations. So it will be more efficient for you to book your transport correctly, lowering the number of hours you have to spend on this task. But much more important is that you also can reduce the transport cost. So basically, by using the right carrier according to your own agreements for each shipment, you will have a lower total transport cost. I think I've seen many examples of cases where you do an ambitious and good tender process. You spend a lot of time in tendering and sourcing, making agreements, and also identifying a potential saving, which is significant, but you're not able to actually implement this. And then you don't get any saving at all. And it's also, of course, very bad for your carriers that are, I mean, at first, they are happy, they have invested in a tender process, they have won, but they don't actually get the volume. So I mean, nobody is happy with the unsuccessful implementation. And that's also, I mean, this ties in then to point number 3, that by really making sure that you have contract compliance across your supply chain, you can further reduce your transport costs. So whenever you do a change, you can use Carrier Select to make sure this change is really implemented and gives you benefit. And provided that without Carrier Select, the cost of changing carriers, so the transaction cost or the cost of implementing your agreement is significant in terms of time and work. Most companies would tend to make tenders relatively infrequently. So maybe you do it every 2 or every 3 years. And also, when you allocate your volumes, you do it in a sort of in relatively big buckets or big chunks, because it's hard to explain a very detailed allocation scheme to actual users that will do the booking. So you will have to put your volumes into big pieces. You will have to make a sort of not optimal, suboptimal allocation, and you will have to live with it for a longer period of time than what it would actually be probably preferable. So by moving to a setup with Carrier Select, you can tender more often, you can implement easily, and you can also make a much more detailed allocation. Basically, not having to simplify at all, just saying that we will do the best. We will use the best available carrier for each shipment. Carrier Select is one way of selecting carriers. You will soon see how it works. just want to quickly explain a couple of other approaches that can be good to keep in mind. The first method is the manual method. It's the only method you can use if you don't have any system supporting carrier selection. Probably you have some sort of written manual for your people saying how to book. Maybe it's very easy, it's one carrier for all, or maybe you have a few different ones depending on destinations or size of the shipment. But you will always be very dependent on the individuals working with the bookings, and it will be hard to change. It's a high risk that people will just keep booking like they always did. The next step is with templates. This is the concept we have in Unifaun TMS, where you can store and pre-populate parts of the booking form, basically. So you can use the templates to define specific scenarios and then allocate corresponding carriers for each of those scenarios. This is really easy to implement. It gives a really fast return on investment because you can instantly make sure that you make a better selection than you did before. The only drawback really is that it's a bit hard to scale. If you have a lot of users, a lot of sites, a lot of destinations, the template structure can become complex. Integrated business logic is a different approach. It's more related to high volume, so like a parcel flow where you have a relatively simple selection logic. Maybe it's just by postcode range or weight intervals or country. But you want to process high volume of parcels. You don't want to have any manual touch. You just want to send files and generate labels automatically. Then you can use the integrated business logic. It's very efficient, it's very reliable. Once it's set up, it will just work. But the handling of the rules in the logic can become also complex because the rules as such will always be an interpretation of the actual tariffs, which means you have to simplify and you have to understand your own tariff structure. And if you do a change, you have to then rethink the whole interpretation again. Carrier Select is really suitable when you have many sites, many users, and many carriers, and you want to do frequent changes. Maybe not to the whole setup, but to parts of it, being able to fine-tune more or less constantly. And this is possible because any change you make is instant. The whole selection process is operationally driven by the actual tariffs, which means that at the same time you upload a new tariff, you will also change the behavior of your people across your supply chain. So there's no additional steps to do. If you upload tariff at 10 o'clock, the change will be from 10 o'clock. There's no lead time. And the only drawback here is really that you have to have high data quality in your tariffs. You have to make sure that you cover the needs you have with tariffs. Otherwise, you will sort of leave your people without any preferred option because they will not see any price or alternative for a consignment they're trying to book. Okay, so Carrier Select, what is it then? Now I've talked about it a lot, but just to be a bit more technical, maybe, Pelle, what is it?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've used the microservice infrastructure, which basically means we built a service that is standalone. It does basically two things from the Unifaun TMS perspective. Unifaun TMS asks the microservice what available tariff providers are there, and then Unifaun TMS can choose which one they want to use, and then you send basic information to you always send the same information regardless of the provider, where you say, I want to use this provider. I'll give the microservice an from address, to address, and the goods dimension, and that's basically it. And then it returns the price back to the TMS. This is used for Carrier Select, of course, which you will see, but it's also used for automatic price, where we use the same tariff. All the work you've done in making sure that your tariffs have high data quality, you will also have benefit if you use automatic price. Automatic price will save tariff information for each of your shipments as soon as they are booked or saved. So it can be used both for your transport planners to see what was the actual cost of what they just booked, but you can also use it for follow-up strategic purposes to see where your cost is allocated. Yeah.
So now I think we have reached the point you all have been waiting for, so the actual demo. So I will show you now how it works.
Yeah. So before we start, I'm logged into a company, or rather we call it domain, because when you come to enterprise setups, a domain can actually contain the entire supply chain. So this is a login where you can describe all the sites, and you can adapt TMS support for each individual that is booking transports within your organization. So I'm in this scenario, I'm the company is Pelle Incorporated, and the company has 37 different sites and 97 suppliers. And I'll be playing the role of Pelle. Very much, I got good fantasy when it comes to this. And Pelle works at the Hällefors site. And my job is basically, when I come to work, I'm doing one thing. I'm looking at the orders in an order system, and then my job is to book and ready the shipments from this production site in Hällefors to the distribution site in Schweinfurt. That's my job. And if you look at, we talked a bit about, or rather Johan talked a bit about the templates, and it is a very powerful way of steering Pelle's work when he comes into work every day. So the basic idea with templates is, like you see here in the list view, is that this is the view that Pelle will receive every day. He will have two options if you use the template setup, which describes the relation. And in this template, you can predefine pretty much any value related to a shipment. In this case, I have predefined that, and with in this case, for instance, the sourcing manager have to do an interpretation of the transport agreements. So you have to look at, when Pelle goes to work in the morning, what kind of instructions do I want to give in terms of templates. In this case, the sourcing manager didn't want to put in too much work into this, because he has 200 other people that he has to configure templates for. So it made it pretty simple. He looked at the transport agreements, and he is identified that when it's below 25,000 kilos, I should use YubiKey Road. When it's above 25,000 kilos, I should use Begoma Expedition. So when this is set up, my work is basically just to look at, with the shipment that I'm readying, what is the weight of it. And this can of course be, if you have another dimension in the goods that's important for you, you can take volume. But in this case, 25,000. So I know that my shipment for today is 20,000. So I just fill that in, and everything is pre-populated, and I can just book. This is from my perspective as when I'm working, it's simple, and it's a lot easier for the sourcing manager if you look at the alternative to create some sort of document and distribute a manual routine that you have to make sure that everyone gets within the organization. So it's still easier. But like we said, it is an interpretation of the transport agreement. In the end, if you want to have an exact interpretation of transport agreement, the workload that you will have to put into creating templates will just be huge. So that's where Carrier Select comes in. So in this case, if I'm coming to work using Carrier Select, I don't really have to know anything about, I don't have to interpret templates, I don't have to do anything other than to write in the destination. Same scenario, I have a weight of 20,000, and that's it. So the sourcing manager in a setup like this doesn't have to do anything else than to basically send the transport agreements or the tariffs that represent the transport agreements to the price provider. They import it, and from that instant, it will impact the entire organization, with not just me, but it will impact everyone. What happens now is that we go to the provider and we ask for this shipment. What kind of options do I have based on my current transport agreements? And in this scenario, it's kind of interesting because the template said that below 25,000 kilos, I was supposed to choose YubiKey Road. Turns out it's not the cheapest option. It's Begoma. That is because, like we said, it's an interpretation of the transport agreement. So it's an interpretation of the tariffs, and the way this has stifled the price. So for 23,000, it will be for 23,000 kilos, you will see that here, then you will get the correct result according to the template setup, but you didn't get it for 20,000 kilos. So in this case, with Carrier Select, you don't only get the lowest price, but you get a lot of other information as well, because not only does this save time for the sourcing manager, it saves time for me as booking, but it also helps me to steer on other things than just to reduce the cost. So I can choose, if we do this in an organization, every time book a transport and you can save money, that's extremely good. But what also is in my daily work as a transport planner, I know that I will have to steer my choices of transport services on more than just cost. I will sit in situations where someone asked me to ship something really fast, then I can use the arrival according to agreement to steer what I choose. But also I know that we will have some problem in relations with some of the services, and some individual drivers can cause problems who might have a problem with capacity for short periods of time. In those situations, either the sourcing manager or locally, you can identify that we can't use Begoma Spedition. So either the sourcing manager can upload a tariff where it says that, okay, you're not supposed to prioritize Begoma at the moment because they're having capacity problems. You can do that instantly. Or me locally, maybe I know that I'm having problems with YubiKey Road, so I know that I don't want to choose that, and the sourcing manager is telling me not to use Begoma, so I'm using Eurolink today. And the good thing with this is that the information that you have on your transport agreements, in this case the booking cutoff time, which indicates that if we were to book this after 12 o'clock, the pickup date, that is now the 19th, or sorry, it's the 25th, which is tomorrow, would be pushed forward one day because I would book after the cutoff date. And this will be automatically handled by the Carrier Select. So when I've chosen Eurolink, I will get help to set the correct pickup date, and also we will save the estimated time of arrival, like you will see here. What it does is you know that the booking that you send to the carrier will be according to agreement, and the pickup date will be according to agreement. So it gives you control over your supply chain. And also what it does is that when the estimated time of arrivals is set, that means that you will have data to use for follow-up. For instance, in analytics, or if you want to push information back to your backend, you will have information where you can build KPIs that are based on what the agreement stipulated based on your booking. So that's the Carrier Select, and I also would like to highlight one of the questions that we receive quite often is, I think that in every case where we've been involved with Carrier Select, we start with a manual process and we work our way forward. And the first question I receive is it possible to fully automate this? And so far, the more you use Carrier Select, the more you understand that in a supply chain, at least the supply chains we're involved in, when you have transport planners, there is a reason you have transport planners. So what Carrier Select does, it empowers the transport planners to make correct decisions based on information in your tariffs. And I think that if you have such easy tariffs that you can actually create one rule that based on from to address and goods dimensions, you can always just execute. And it is that simple. You don't have to have people that plan or make smart decisions on a daily basis. In those cases, I would say that you should look at the integration, the business logic in integration instead, because so far this has not moved towards fully automation. It has moved towards giving even more support and even more power to the transport planner. So that's basically the demo.
Thank you, Pelle. Excellent. So going back to the presentation, just trying to summarize a bit. So I think what we keep coming back to when we talk about our product and the value proposition of it is these two words, visibility and control. We have spent some time previously in webinars to show you analytics and to show how we can provide visibility, not only in real time, but also afterwards, to understand what's happening in your supply chain, to understand where you have the improvement potential. Based on these insights, you want to take action, and this is where the control part comes in. And Carrier Select is a very good example of a tool that gives you control, to make it possible for you to give your transport planners are professionals. I'm sure that they are able to make good decisions if they only are well informed. And that's what Carrier Select will do. Yeah. It will keep them informed, because probably it's not always the cheapest option that should be selected. Sometimes you need to focus on lead time. Sometimes you know that the cheapest option is actually not available because they had a breakdown the day before. The truck is not going to come, or you want to make some sort of other consideration in your decision. But you will always know what options you have and what they cost, and also what the lead time commitment is from your different carriers. So you can make the right decision. Then you can use visibility again to evaluate what's happening and to follow the changes or the impact from the changes you make. So this can really become an iterative way of working, a continuous development loop that will, over time, we are sure, really significantly improve your supply chain performance, not only lowering your costs, but really improving supply chain performance and actually adding to the value creation of the whole company, making the transport function and transport management in the end a competitive advantage. You are so much better in transportation than your competition that actually helps you grow your company. I think that's the ultimate target for for any transport managers, as I see it. So visibility and control over time, that's what really makes the difference, we think.
Yeah. And just want to add, I forgot one of my notes from the demo, which is that one thing that we're looking into integrating with the Carrier Select is that we have seen a real increase in interest where companies actually want to make decisions based on environment, the environmental impact and emissions that transport has. So we're really looking into the ways to integrate that, because if you have a smart transport planner that is looking at the choice between two carriers and the only difference is 10 euros in price, but the more expensive option has a much less effect on environment, we know that we have customers that want to have that sort of visibility too. So that's something we're really looking into integrating with the Carrier Select.
If you do that, if you integrate emission impact or emission volumes into a decision process, I mean, then you're not only measuring emission anymore, and you're actually steering based on emission, and you can actually claim rightfully that you are doing things to impact the emissions from your operations. And the transport-related emissions for most companies is a very big part of the total emission from the company. So it's not a small claim to make that we are actually reducing our emissions.
Yeah, because now we have companies that are trying to create visibility. The quality of the environmental impact reports are still kind of low, I would say. So they're trying to work with visibility, but there's still a lack of tools to actually take control. So that's what we're trying to do with the Carrier Select and the emissions.
So if you want to hear more about our system, you're welcome to visit our webinar page. You can see the recording from the previous webinar about analytics. You can sign up for our next sessions, which will be in November, and we will talk about something we call collaborative TMS. This is really, I would say, well, it's essential for visibility, but it's also actually a way of improving control. So hopefully you find that interesting, and you will sign up at our webpage to learn more in November. So let's see if we have any questions logged here. I don't think so. I can't see any questions. So if you do have questions and you would like to send them to us later, please use the email I showed in the beginning, sales@unifaun.com, and we will get back to you. So thank you for listening. We wish you a nice day, and hopefully we will see you again in November.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.